Welcome back to .NET Rocks. This is Carl Franklin.
And this is Richard Campbell.
We're at Ignite.
We are at Ignite. I like this space, though.
Yeah, it is space. And thank God the hurricane didn't destroy Orlando, or this would be a totally different show.
Yes, quite a different show. And here we are from the Relief Center.
We're out in a boat. Yeah.
It's a bit windy.
Scott Hunter is here. Scott Hunter.
Thank you, guys.
But before we talk to him, we have this little business of doing a thing we call Better Know a Framework.
Awesome. All right, buddy, what do you got?
Here's what I have. packagesearch.azurewebsites.net. Heard of that one, Scott?
I have, yes.
Yeah. This is a very cool site. It's free. It's a package search for .NET Core packages. So you just put a type or a member, and it'll show all the packages containing a match. So I just put in system string, or actually I just put in string, and I got back like 9,000 results. But it tells you the package name, like system runtime, version 4.1.0, system string, and all of the .NET cores and standards that it supports. .NET Core 5, .NET Standard 1, 2, 3, and 5. And the list just goes on. So it's a very handy tool for anybody doing .NET Core, either migrations or just, where is that type? I can't find it. Should it be here? Is it not? Whatever. So,
cool.
Thanks. That's it. That's
Very
what
cool.
I got. Who's talking to us, man?
Grabbed a comment off of show 1376, the one we did with Mr. Hunter back in November 2016, talking a little bit about Connect, because there was a lot of announcements back then. And we were talking about Core 1, because even 1.1, it was now at that point.
Yep.
And this comment comes to us from Alex Shannon, who says, I enjoyed listening to the show as it managed to diffuse my frustration at having to move my core apps back to CS Proj, especially after I just got the hang of project.json. What was missing, though, is the package management system in .NET Core apps. How are these going to be managed? Right now, we are having trouble with internal feeds not being used over default NuGet feeds, meaning we have to disable all feeds except the one we want to get our packages down on. Can we not use a more intelligent package manager, especially with parts of the .NET framework are now packaged? I'll get Scott to answer that.
I think that's a great idea.
Since he's sitting right here, and Alex, thank you so much for your comment. A .NET Rocks mug is on its way to you. And if you'd like a .NET Rocks mug, write a comment on the website at .NETRocks.com or via any of our social media, because we publish every show to Facebook and Google+. And if you comment there and we read it on the show, we'll send you a mug.
And definitely follow us on Twitter. I'm at Carl Franklin. He's at Rich Campbell. And send us a tweet. We put them in nice little packages.
I got your bio right here, Mr. Hunter.
I see that.
It's brief.
Yeah. Why don't you read it?
Yeah, Scott Hunter is the Director of Program Management on the .NET team at Microsoft, and his team build the .NET Framework, .NET Core, ASP.NET, any framework, the managed languages, web, and .NET tooling.
All the things.
What do you do on Tuesday?
F-sharp.
Nice.
Where are we at with Core today?
We just shipped Core 2.0. God, what about 3 or 4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And
August.
It was funny because that question you were just reading. One of the things we learned with Core 1.0 was as the .NET team, we struggle between .NET's always been this thing that was part of Windows,
right?
Which means if you want to change something in .NET, you have to wait for a Windows release to happen to actually change something in .NET. And so we over pivoted in .NET Core 1.0, saying, hey, we want to have the ability to change everything, so we'll make everything packages,
right?
And that's why some of these tools, like that lookup tool you were talking about before, even exist. Is if you're building a .NET Core 1.0 application, you might have to go look up which package, whatever class you want to use, is actually in.
Right.
And so one of the things we changed in .NET Core 2.0 is you just reference .NET Core at the top of your CS Proj file, and you get all of .NET Core. There is no referencing a package for each of those individual things. What we learned was trying to manage the package graph for the .NET framework was hard.
Yeah, and not worth the pain.
It wasn't worth the pain. We had 2 people pretty much full-time job was to manage the package graph.
Right.
And we still broke it 3 times over the 1.0 period to the 1.1 through the 1.1 period.
I mean, what would be the argument for decomposing a framework like that? Just to make it smaller when you're developing? Because I know at runtime you can cut out the stuff you don't want.
The hope from the engineering team was that you could go change a piece of the framework more easily.
Oh,
I can just go grab a new one of these packages and try something new. So the idea was it made, if you want to go change string, it's easier to change string.
Right, sure.
Than having to ship a whole folder full of DLLs for the entire for the whole framework.
But
not
worth the pain.
But it was not worth the pain. And the reality is, customers want to reference a single thing.
Yeah.
Not a graph of stuff. And that graph was not consistent. So you could build one day, and then I could build the next day, and I might have a different package graph than you had.
You know, what this reminds me of is back in the Silverlight days, like 2010, 2011, when you guys were doing out-of-band releases. And same thing, we started having problems composing. So what exactly is your dev configuration? Which version of this do you have? Which version of that do you have? Like, it became a challenge.
It was a mess. I mean, I remember it's like, I'm using .NET Framework 4.5. I have MVC4, Web API 2, Signal R3.
Yep, exactly.
Web Pages 2 or whatever it is. I mean,
we don't want to go there again.
No.
Please tell me, people in the audience, that is not good, right? You just want to download one thing and you just get everything, or
everything.
Sub-assembly hell.
Yes.
Lots of nodding for that one.
Good.
So one thing that I find people find confusing, at least I did at first, was the whole idea of standards. Like, you know, in AppVNext, we curate poly, the NuGet policy for retries. So we have it down to .NET Standard 1.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when a new standard comes out, no, you don't have to be Standard 2, Standard whatever, because if it's Standard 1, it's already Standard 2.
It's always a subset.
That's exactly it. So we shipped .NET Standard 1, obviously, last June when we shipped .NET Core 1.0.
Yeah.
There is something...
last June or 2 Junes ago?
It's last year.
Okay. It's only last year.
We're a little bit over a year into the .NET Core era, at least for the release stuff.
Yeah.
But that whole... First off, a lot of people... .NET Standard confuses a lot of folks. .NET Standard is... People have asked me, where do I download .NET Standard?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You don't download a standard.
Yeah.
The standard is... So, honestly, the standard is, and there's a person on my team, Emo, who actually kind of owns the standard. All it really is, it's a list of APIs that is supported for .NET Standard 2. It's just a huge list of APIs.
Sure.
And a .NET framework has to implement all those APIs to be considered .NET Standard X compliant.
Right.
And so what we kind of said 3 weeks ago when we shipped all this stuff was .NET Framework, .NET Core, and Xamarin all are .NET Standard 2 compliant.
Right.
Yeah.
And that means this huge list of APIs, each of them has to saittify that list of APIs.
And they all behave the same way,
and they all pretty much behave the same way. There'll be a few cases where you might get a thrown exception. It'll be a platform implemented exception. Those are edgy things. There's like 20 or 30 of those on the edges. But for the most part, it means you have a series of APIs that are completely consistent across all those.
So coded for one, works for the other.
And the most fundamental pieces are in one.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's like your strings and your async await and that kind of stuff. That's in one.
And of course, if you're, in Carl's case, if your library supports .NET Standard 1, it runs on more platforms.
It runs on all the platforms.
It runs on pretty much everything, because that was the small subset that .NET Core 1 basically had.
Right.
But so if you're building a library, you want to aim for the lowest standard you can support,
right?
Because you get more breadth.
Yeah.
Because like .NET Core 1 won't run .NET Standard 2 stuff.
Right.
And .NET Core 2 will run everything.
Yeah.
And so much better than PCL, which was sort of like, all right, how many platforms do I want to support? Now I'm left with an API set that's like this.
That's what led us that way. PCL was this thing that you keep checking the boxes, and by the time you're done, you can do string and int and double.
But it runs everywhere.
But it runs everywhere.
I can make a calculator.
Those strings will run everywhere in .NET. and that, I think that era existed because back in those days, we didn't have the power to say that all .NETs must implement this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And we even got the Windows guys with UWP. Mm-hmm. It now supports .NET Standard 2 as well.
That's interesting.
So one of the biggest complaints of somebody trying to build a universal Windows application was that .NET didn't feel like real .NET, because there was a ton of APIs that you were used to having in .NET that were just gone.
Right. Yeah.
The other cool thing about .NET Standard 2 is roughly 70-ish% of all the NuGet packages in NuGet.org will run on .NET Standard 2.
Nice.
Which means if you're a UWP developer, suddenly the entire package ecosystem opens up for you.
Your NuGet world's available to you.
If you're a .NET Core developer, the entire universe opens up for you. So it's...
Where does WPF get edged in here, or does it? Is it edged out?
Well, I think it is edged in. So WPF and WinForms, they're still one of the most popular app types that you see in .NET today. So it's, even though there's a bunch of shiny new things, the reality is most of our developers building desktop applications are using WinForms or WPF today. Mm-hmm. We will still continue to invest in there. Mm-hmm. There's some talks this week at Ignite that are focusing on, there's a couple things. One is we did the high DPI support for WinForms in 4.7.
Right.
There's more of that work coming. You'll get some more of it next year. But one of our goals is to make WinForms work great for modern high DPI screens. The next big thing we think of when you think of WPF and WinForms is if you want to go take those apps. It used to be the Windows team would have said, hey, if you want to build an app that runs on Windows, it has to be a UWP app.
Right.
Now you've heard this term centennialization.
Right.
And even
actually, let's talk about that. What does that mean, actually?
So what that means is that's when you take an existing application, whether it's Win32, whether it's .NET with WinForms or WPF, whatever that application is, and you put that into the you make that app where it can be put in the Windows Store. And there's, and there's two versions of the Windows stores. There's the public Windows Store. So people might have seen that Office now is in the Windows Store. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's a Win32 application. It's not a UWP application.
COM app.
Right. It's an old school app. So you can put those in the store, but there's also a local store as well. So you can have your company can have your own version of the Windows Store. And so the benefit, if you're a WinForm developer or a WPF developer of trying to do this, is typically the hardest part of a WinForm WPF app is how you install it across your
deployment every time.
Exactly. You have somebody in your team that builds an MSI for you, or you use a technology like ClickOnce.
Right.
Well, in the case of this centennialization, with the next update of Visual Studio, we're going to make it where you can basically right-click on your project and take any existing project and turn it into a centennialized application, so it's ready for the store, whether it's the public store or
Centennial was the code name for the tool that basically wrapped these full-style apps.
It's a bridge, and one of the cool things that the centennialization does is it actually does it's kind of a sandbox. Mm-hmm. So an app running inside of a centennialized app is running inside of a sandbox, which means it can't like destroy the registry and all those kinds of things.
That's great.
It's actually talking to a faked kind of registry in a lot of ways.
Well, it's sort of like a virtualized app, isn't it?
It's a virtualized app.
Yeah.
And that was when Win 8 was first talked about back in 2011, there was very much this idea of, you're not going to call the SQL Server directly. You're in this container now, and there are very strict rules about how you go in and out. So it feels like that wrapper's back, but it's being inserted in a different way. And same thing, makes the app software really safe. Like there's only so much you can do if you're in that wrapper.
So if I have a WPF app that I want to sell to the general public, I can centennialize that, put it in the Windows Store, and sell it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I get that.
And there's some more stuff coming as well. I can't talk about it today.
Yeah.
But there's some other interesting stuff that
XAML Standard sort of fits in there.
XAML Standard's in there somewhere as well. But we also know that the WinForm programming model is really easy and popular. And is there a way we could do more bridging and bring some of the UWP isms into that as well? So that's
one could speculate.
Yes, one might speculate. So there is a open source project out there that does a replacement for GDI that sort of uses the GPU, doesn't it? I mean, I think I talked about that on .NET Launch.
I think you did a framework on it once.
There are quite a few GPU libraries out there for .NET. There's even some commercial ones that are out there. Yeah. One of the things we just announced at .NET Conf last week was if you're a .NET Core developer, with .NET Standard, we brought all these APIs back. But pretty much any API that we're going to bring back into .NET Core has to be something that runs cross-platform.
Right. Sure.
There still are some Windows APIs that developers commonly use, and so we announced the Windows Compat Pack for .NET Core.
Oh, cool.
And that is we're taking things like system.drawing,
sound,
and which is something that a lot of people use to resize images and stuff like that. We're going to bring that back as a NuGet package.
Nice.
Things like system directory services are going to come back this way. There's a whole bunch of these that we're bringing back. So that's something we'll probably release in the October-November timeframe.
Love it.
Making it even easier to move your application to core. We're trying to go basically knock down each of the reasons why, would block you from going to core.
Is there sort of hardware virtualization in there? Like I'm thinking about audio apps, video apps, things that, interact more intimately with the system resources, like the audio system. Making an abstraction layer across that is really hard because you're opening streams, and those, streams have to implement they have to behave correctly, first of all, cross-platform.
I think the first area you're going to see, that is a very interesting area,
Edge
and I think we will actually do something there. I think the first one you're going to see, you kind of hinted to it already, the GPU stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things we want to do with .NET is we want to make sure .NET is actually really usable for building, if you're doing AI, machine learning. Mm-hmm. And so how do you run models in .NET? And so we have part of our team that's actually working right now on taking common machine learning types and putting them into the VCL. So this will be something you'll see later this year, probably.
Sort of built in.
Because there's a whole bunch of .NET libraries for machine learning and AI today, but they all implement these types themselves. And so the hope for us is we actually implement the types in the BCL, and then all the .NET AI libraries share these types, which means you can then share code between
right.
these libraries.
You don't get caught in a trap where you use this library with these special types, and now you want to use this thing over here, and you got to map the types.
And then hopefully in the future, we would then take that library and GPU enable it.
Right.
So you could actually then run that math stuff directly on the GPU and get super crazy performance.
That's
I think the GPU virtualization would be probably the first one because of the AI aspect.
Yeah.
But any of the I/O constructs, and we talk about audio and video streaming stuff, it's like, how do I get to the bus? How do I move data efficiently, reliably, consistently?
Yeah.
So, I can see a lot of wrappers running over that. I mean, XAML's kind of the whammy here, right? The core's awesome. I could see you getting this compatibility. Like, I love the idea I'm going to be able to pick up a 4.7 app and just switch frameworks and recompile it, and it's like, ta-da, cross-platform. But it's all about the UI at that point if it's a desktop
UI doesn't cross platforms very well, does it?
It does not yet. Miguel showed some cool stuff at .NET Conf. If anybody saw the keynote at .NET Conf last week,
I was there.
Miguel showed he's got Xamarin Forms running on pretty much every platform now.
Wow.
He has it on Linux, he has it on Mac, and he has it on Windows.
That is awesome.
And so that's just the beginning of trying to touch those kinds of things.
He's the guy. Like, if anybody's going to try and find a way to have a XAML that runs everywhere,
he's the guy. Yeah. Exactly. And he go watch that keynote if you want to see and find out how to get access to those bits. But I think some combination of what he was showing and XAML standard will end up with something in the future where you will have this kind of cross-platform UI.
Yeah. That's great.
I think we first talked to you about .NET Standard in 2015. When it was just sort of at its formative stages, like, we got this issue, this is how we're going to deal with it. I mean, now it's manifest as Standard 2. Yes. But the first time we heard the phrase XAML Standard was build this year.
That's right.
I think. March.
It was build this year.
March or April.
And it was just an idea.
And I think it still is, but it's just like, it feels to me like it takes a couple of years to make a standard mean something.
It does. I mean, even as you said, .NET Standard, I think I talked about it at Build the first time in 2015. And the reason that we even talked about that was, as I joined the .NET team, I'm trying to look at all these .NETs that we have, and they're all incompatible with each other.
And it's painful for us as developers.
It is painful, and I saw the pain. It's like how many, my engineering manager, John Cunningham, he calls these shards.
Right.
Yes. Because we've made too many shards.
Yeah. The right number of shards is 1.
we need to de-shard the product.
Right.
But as you said, we showed that in 2015, and really it didn't come to fruition until about 3 or 4 weeks ago with .NET Standard 2.
So I get the sense that you had all these teams that are still operating separately. They're just going to a common point.
Right.
So how many flavors of XAML are there out there that need to, get standardized? So obviously Xamarin, right? And Xamarin Forms is very XAML-ish.
There's Xamarin, there's UWP, there's WPF.
Right.
Those are probably the three big ones.
And very different. Like, Xamarin and WPF are so different.
Yes.
XAML-wise.
Well, Xamarin and UWP are very different as well.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't know that people really grasp the fact that the UWP implementation of XAML and the WPF implementation of XAML are not the same things. They're different teams.
Right. Completely different teams.
Yeah.
Each of those XAML teams are completely different teams.
Completely different teams at different locations doing different things.
But hopefully we'll be able to, just like you did with .NET Standard, hopefully we'll get to a point where, we have some commonality across all these things.
Right.
Which makes it easy. It'd be great if you could just take some of your code from a Xamarin Forms app and paste it into a UWP app, or take code from a UWP app, XAML code, and paste it into a Xamarin app.
That I'm also thinking from a skills perspective, that I'm comfortable writing my XAML this way, and then I switch platforms and I'm still comfortable writing
That's it. I mean, you learn the skill. That's the whole part about .NET Standard is you learn one class library or one BCL, and you can use it everywhere. XAML would be the same thing. Once you learn to do XAML one way, that crosses all the tiers.
Awesome.
But I think it'll take those guys a little bit of time to do that. It's not. That's not going to happen overnight. That's hard work.
This portion of .NET Rocks is brought to you by our friends at JetBrains. Hey, how often do you profile memory usage in your .NET apps? What if you could automate memory usage checks so that they're executed every time you commit a change? You can actually do that with .memory unit from JetBrains. .memory unit is a free unit testing framework for monitoring .NET memory usage. You write unit tests that check your code for all kinds of memory issues, and then run the tests on your machine or in a continuous integration server like TeamCity or VSTS, just like you do with regular unit tests. You can track how much memory is allocated, check memory for objects of a specific type to prevent memory leaks, or compare several memory snapshots in a unit test to see if memory usage is creeping up. Learn more and download .memory unit from jetbrains.netrocks.com, or just search for a package called .memory unit on the NuGet gallery.
I'd like to remind everybody you're listening to .NET Rocks with Carl Franklin and Richard Campbell. We're talking to Scott Hunter about .NET Core, .NET Standard, XAML Standard, and everything else in that bucket. And we're talking about the complexity of all the UIs and how merging them is just going to take a while. But I do remember back, when Windows 8 apps, when we first had what is now UWP, Metro apps, I guess we were calling them. Shh.
Don't say the M word.
Actually, I can say that because I don't work for Microsoft. But that's what we called them anyway, and how different the libraries were. And so there was a lot of pushback, from your traditional base, which was like, how many times am I going to have to relearn XAML? And, you can sort of hear that cynicism, in the zeitgeist out there today. But, what do you say to people that are like, oh, okay, how many times is the standard going to change and all of that stuff? It seems like once you crack the cross-platform problem, then, that's it. I mean, what else changes? Really?
Well, I was going to say, if you look at .NET standard, it's not breaking changes.
Right.
Just more APIs get added.
Right.
It's not going to be one day that, hey, we're just going to go remove 5,000 APIs.
That's a very good point. So if you're doing Xamarin Forms today, those Xamarin Forms apps will continue to work until forever.
Right, yeah.
But there may be new ways you might be able to use a text block.
At some point, you might be able to use some text block, and that same text block works in UWP, it works in Xamarin Forms, it works in whatever other XAMLs we have.
That's a great point.
That really is the point, is the skills you have today will stay the same.
Right.
But hopefully you'll be able to learn a new skill in the future that actually goes everywhere.
Yeah, and that's the right way to do it.
To your point about this is going to take a couple of years, this is not because we have to figure it all out, certainly amount of figuring out. It's that now the teams, once they have a standard they want to build their next versions towards that standard. Right?
Yeah.
It's not like they're ripping stuff out or starting over. They are just building to the next version and all meeting at a point.
Yeah, to me, .NET, this whole, I don't ever want to have .NET do one of these moments where you have to start over again. I think if you look at some of the Windows UI tech, the biggest challenge for people is every 3 years they change the programming model.
Yeah.
Right.
We need to quit changing the programming models.
Yeah.
Right.
You can change the UI. We like the new UI. We like the new look. But
don't make me rewrite my app every 3 years.
Right.
Because we just don't. It's too expensive. Right. We can't afford it, and our bosses won't let us.
Trust me, I talked to lots of .NET customers. They're all still running WinForms and WPF.
Yeah. For exactly that reason.
On Windows XP?
I don't see much of that.
Thank goodness.
I do.
Oh, man.
Unfortunately.
17-year-old operating system.
I just have to impress on people. They think they're doing it so that they're safe, right? There's nothing safe about running an old operating system, especially one that isn't updated regularly.
I would not run any operating system that's not patched on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
Completely up to date.
Yeah.
So another aspect I think a lot of folks are struggling with, we play games with the naming, that there's the full framework. That's not right. We just call it framework. And then there's core. And you're going to continue these two lines side by side forever?
I think we will forever, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know, other than they both support .NET Standard, I think that's the only bridge that we'll have between those things.
Right.
The reality is .NET Framework is a piece of Windows.
Yes.
And for backwards compatibility, that piece of Windows has to stay the same that it is today.
Right.
Windows, the big claim about Windows is you can build an app and 10 years later that app will still run.
The VB runtime ships with Windows 10.
Still ships. Classic ASP still ships with Windows 10 as well.
Right.
So all that tech is still there.
Yeah.
And so I don't see any way to merge those things without
and really no reason to.
And no reason.
Microsoft committed to 10 years of primary, 20 years of secondary support for operating systems, and this stuff's been embedded in the operating system, so it comes with.
Now we have had conversations about putting WinForms on core.
Right. Interesting.
Those conversations have kind of happened, but once again, it feels like a weird. You would have to recompile your thing, and what is the benefit you get from recompiling your thing?
Right.
So
what does that look like on Mac?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
That's where you're going.
It would be a Windows only thing.
Right. So now you're tying core compilations to a non-cross-platform.
But it also makes another shard.
Yeah, that's really what it is.
So as you heard, I'm trying to actually reduce the number of things,
fewer shards,
not have more things.
Right.
Yeah. So there'd have to be a great value prop to convince us that we should go do that.
Right.
If we want to do it. Comically enough, at the Microsoft Hackathon last year, we had WinForms running on core.
Well, there's always somebody crazy out there. Speaking of crazy, there's always Steve Sanderson. You saw this thing he did at NBC with the WebAssembly.
Has anybody seen Blazor? Has anybody here heard of Blazor?
First of all, let's spell it. There's no E in there.
No,
right?
it's Blazor.
Yeah.
It's a GitHub repository. It's Steve Sanderson being Steve Sanderson where he's found a version of C# that actually runs in JavaScript, has put it together as a WebAssembly. And so, he's writing C# code inside the browser.
First off, let's talk about what WebAssembly is. WebAssembly is this new technology that every browser, including Edge, all the browsers support this. And WebAssembly allows you to run basically native code inside the browser.
Right.
And so you can use this to run potentially .NET, you can run Go, you can run Java, you can run whatever in the stack. And so Steve put together a quick demo where he had C# running in the browser.
Yep.
And so imagine you're building a web application. Today you've got to take whatever your UI does. You have to convert that into JSON, and then send the JSON down the wire, and then deconstruct that back into a .NET object. And so in his case, because he's running C# on both the browser and the back end, he's just sharing C# between both sides.
Yeah.
So it makes the talking of the front end and the back end easier.
He was invoking to JavaScript.
Yes.
It was awesome. It's mind melting. It's like, who does that?
So Miguel's working on WebAssembly as well. So Miguel in the mobile part of our business has been looking at that as well. Because you run a Xamarin Forms app inside the browser.
Sure.
Imagine that
the power that would be.
That's a pretty powerful thing. You write a UI in C#, and that UI then runs in every browser on every platform. That's a pretty powerful
idea. And it's just that now the browser is simply the smart client host.
Yeah. And so then from a web perspective, instead of using Angular or React, you actually just write C# in the client, and it calls C# on the back end. So these are areas we're exploring.
It's still in the sandbox, right? Like there's an inherent unsafe feeling I have here, but it's like we're in the browser context.
It's in a sandbox.
Yeah.
You can't go out and call registry and stuff. You can't go and destroy the box. I mean, it's designed in a way that you are sandboxed.
Because there's lots of concern around this is too much. This is not what the web was for, and I'm like, we're kind of just trying to get work done here.
It would just be a great parlor trick if you could do that. I mean,
but it might be an awesome way to cross deploy apps.
We're doing what we internally at Microsoft call customer development right now, and just basically testing the concept with customers to see if it's interesting.
Something they want.
It's something they want.
Yeah.
Because on the other side, if we're talking web development, there is the progressive web app, which is sort of the adding of the last ingredients in the browser host to make it a real disconnected smart client. So I see these sort of two competing ideas utilizing the browser as a way to simply get software onto a machine.
Some of the feedback we've gotten from customers is if you've actually built a React app or an Angular app, the tool chain to build that is pretty scary.
It's complicated, and you sort of pull it together yourself.
You kind of like bridge one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. So it's a big complicated tool chain.
Every time I do a show on this, I end up taking so many notes for all of the different tools that the guest is talking about. That is this sort of tribe of tools to make that work.
Right.
So that's one of the other areas we think WebAssembly might be interesting. Is our tool chain is much smaller than the tool chain for doing all that stuff.
Well, right back to the beginning of this conversation where it's like one version of the framework, like one suite of things I need to make an app.
Right. Hey, Richard.
Yeah, buddy.
Guess what time it is now?
It must be that happy time again.
Yeah. It's time to explore space.
Oh.
With a warp drive and warp core. And trying to find some other Star Trek references.
And a warp framework? Is that where you're going to go?
Framework.
Okay.
Yeah. How does that work? I don't know. We haven't made that's coming. It's actually time to give away a DXperience subscription from our friends at DevExpress to one lucky member of the .NET Rocks fan club. But first, become a UI superhero with DevExpress UI controls and libraries and deliver elegant .NET solutions that address customer needs today and leverage your existing knowledge to build next-generation touch-enabled solutions for tomorrow. Whether it's an Office-inspired application or a data-centric analytics dashboard, DevExpress Universal ships with everything you'll need to build your best without limits or compromise. Learn more and download your free 30-day trial of DevExpress Universal at devexpress.com/superhero.
Well, all right, buddy. Who's our winner?
Today's winner, Richard, is Dion Brown. Give it a round of applause for Dion Brown.
Round of applause for you, sir.
He's here. No, he's not. I'm sorry. And Dion just won the DevExpress DXperience subscription, a big pile of awesome from our friends over there, just for being a member of the .NET Rocks fan club. And hey, if you don't know what that is, go to .NETRocks.com, click on the big Get Free Stuff button, answer a few questions, and join the .NET Rocks fan club, because we have thousands of members all over the world. And every show, we like to give away stuff from our sponsors. And every December, we give away a $5,000 technology shopping spree to one randomly selected member of the .NET Rocks fan club.
Right.
You got to sign up to win.
Once we convince them we're not Nigerian princes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Scott, you've answered this question a lot, but we do
It's been
this.
a year.
We do this to every guest. If you had $5,000 to spend on technology today, sir, what do you think you would buy? Don't say Azure credits because no Azure.
Drones.
Yeah. You got a particular one in mind?
No, not just drones. Are you like
of drones.
dancing drones?
So I'm a big fan right now of the drones where you wear the goggles.
Oh, yeah.
And see out the front of the drones.
Oh, yeah.
And you can get these really small ones now, and they go like really, really crazy fast.
Yeah.
I was actually at a park in Redmond a month or so ago, and we were racing them up and down trees.
Wow. That's sort of like a video game in real life.
Yes.
Yes.
Weird. When you mess up, you can't put another quarter in.
Right,
You have to go pick up the pieces.
But they're carbon fiber. They don't even break.
Yeah, they
just
bounce.
kind of bounce around. So
I got one for my birthday when you were there. You were sort of there.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid to fly it at full speed. I think I'm going to need the goggles because flying it remotely at full speed when you're just looking at it, it's way too
Do they
fast.
actually have dogfighting games where you can, shoot at each other and you see graphics and stuff, and you're doing this in sort of in the real world at the same time?
I have not seen that.
Because that's a good idea. $100.
but we have gone out there and chased RC planes with the drones.
Yeah, wow, cool.
So I'm worried flying up on the coast there being attacked by eagles. Because that's a problem where I'm from.
That would make a heck of a video, though, wouldn't it?
Kind of the end of the
Eagles
drone, though.
coming at you.
The drone will lose.
You can buy a big drone.
Yeah, the big DJIs, but I like that little Spark. Like that thing's wicked fast and very cool. It's got a great camera on it. So I've flown it out over the ocean and watched seals feeding below, and then they look up like, "What's that thing?" and they all take off. So they're a little obnoxious, but fun.
So we don't have a dilithium crystal type yet in .NET.
No,
I'll have to work on that.
It might take many bars of gold press latinum to make that work.
Obviously the versions are just going to continue where they are. Do you see them iterating in sequence? So we're going to get a core 2.1 around 4.7.2, like that kind of thing?
Well, I think Windows has announced they're doing like a twice a year kind of update path.
Okay.
There's a fall one and a spring one, I think, is what they've announced. I don't think I'm saying something that's not out public.
Yeah. So that means that's when framework will be updated.
And so we have basically 2 times a year to update the .NET framework.
Okay.
And core, I don't think we figured out exactly what the speed of core is going to be right now. So we just did. We won't do another major version.
It was such a heavy push.
There was a huge push after the 1.0, to do the 2.0, and 2.0 had the big change to the .NET Standard and repackaging the framework. I don't see one of those happening. I think we'll do a 2.1, a 2.2, a 2.3. It'll be a while before we go to a 3.
What's the next standard? Have you agreed upon a standard beyond 2?
No, we're not thinking of. I don't think .NET Standard is going to change for a while. So I think .NET Standard 2 will be the thing for at least a year or 2 or maybe even 3. There's not a.
It's an interesting question of why you would rev the standard.
Right.
Like what happens that makes you decide we'd have to go to a new standard? Because now all the teams are going to go off in their different directions, compliant with 2, but adding new bits.
New technologies?
So I think some of the stuff that might make the standard change in the future is one of the things that Mads Torgerson showed at .NET Conf, and Casey's going to show a little bit later today in a session at 10:45 here at Ignite, is some of the new C# features that are coming in.
Right.
We have C# 7.1 that's going to come out in November. There'll likely be a 7.2 sometime early next year.
Yeah.
And then we have an 8.0 that'll come out next fall. I mean, these aren't set dates. I'm just giving time frames.
Roughly.
Yep.
And there's some cool features. There's a nullability feature that we have that's coming. But there's also some new language abstracts we've built to make things like Kestrel, which is the web server that runs inside of ASP.NET Core, faster. So when we built Kestrel, we wrote a lot of unsafe code. Inside, if you look inside of Kestrel, there's lots of dirty unsafe code because we're trying to.
You were going for speed, as I recall.
It's all speed and reusing memory and doing a bunch of buffering and stuff like that. And we're now looking at building features into the language that allow us to get rid of some of that code.
Cool.
Wow, great.
And
make it safer.
And some of those types will likely end up in the standard in the long run. We talked about AI and ML.
Yeah, ML. I could see that adding to a standard.
But the way we kind of think of it at Microsoft is core, because it's not associated with Windows. We can move faster.
Right.
Yeah.
So what you'll probably see us do is we'll try stuff.
Yeah, it seems like the experimental place.
And we'll experiment. And if the experiment's successful, then we'll decide, it's time to go add this to the standard.
Right.
And maybe there's a standard 2.1 that comes out 2 years from now where we add some ML types, we add some other types to it. But that's gonna be the thing, is we're gonna wait until we think we have enough stuff to consider revving the spec.
Is there anything new coming in the mobile space that we haven't talked about that you can talk about?
I think we've already talked about all the stuff in the mobile space. The big thing in the mobile space, which James showed yesterday, is we want to make being able to develop on a mobile device easier than it is today. If you want to run an emulator, well, those are slow. If you want to copy to your device, that is slow.
Yeah. Right.
And so the Xamarin guys have been showing the live player.
Right.
And that tech, I think, is really amazing, because basically you're in Visual Studio. You don't have to pair your phone with Visual Studio. You don't have to put a USB cable in and plug it up. You basically take a picture of a barcode on the screen, and basically it's screen sharing the app to the device.
Into the device.
Yeah, I tried that earlier, and I think it was a build. I tried it, and it was new, but
it still got some edges on it and stuff like
edges,
that.
Yeah.
But I think that's still the big thing in the mobile
shortening
side.
up the cycle of write code, run code, fix code.
Yes,
that's the pain I see right now in mobile development, and especially when it's more than one device.
We think it's web development as well.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we're not happy with is we think what we call this at Microsoft, we call this inner loop. Inner loop is you write some code, you save it, and you run.
Yeah.
How long is that cycle?
Mm-hmm.
When you save and run and see it?
Yeah.
And how long does that take? In ASP.NET Core, it takes seconds,
right?
Like 5 or 6 seconds, probably. I want that to be 1 second or sub 1 second.
Right.
Live Player is trying to do the same thing in the mobile space. So I think in both places, we're trying to get that inner loop thing solved. I think
it's a direct gauge of productivity. The quicker you can iterate on that, the more code you write, the happier you are with what you're making.
Another thing we're doing in that space is if you build a mobile app, we want to give you an ASP.NET Core backend by default.
Right.
Nice.
And then wire up all the hard stuff. The hardest part, if you have a mobile app, and you want authentication.
Yeah.
How do you know that your API that you're actually calling from your mobile app is secure?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
That's a hard problem. And so we're trying to build templates. The latest preview of Visual Studio for Mac, or the latest RTM version of Visual Studio for Mac, now has that. When you build a mobile app, there's a checkbox to get it back in.
Great.
And I think that's something you'll see us continue to iterate on as well, trying to make give you the front end and the back end. I like to even go do that for UWP and some of the other types.
Absolutely.
I'd love to have some consistent authentication strategy. So if my company's decided, hey, we always use API management through Azure with Azure AD,
right?
That's just a set of specifications you put in. And each time you go to build a back end, it just includes that.
Right. Exactly.
That's just give me the credential, off we go.
Yeah. That's a whole area that we're gonna focus on.
But you guys, plumbing. I don't want to think about that stuff. I just want to do it right.
And that's where Microsoft really excels in taking care of that plumbing stuff, right? I mean, historically and continuously.
I'll give you an area that we have not invested in for a long time and we're thinking of again. So when we shipped .NET Core 1.0, or .NET Framework 1.0 and 1.1,
2002?
Remember we had these things called data sources?
Yeah.
It made it so easy to wire an app to data.
Yeah.
We haven't done that in a long time.
That's a long time.
So we were asking ourselves just recently, hey, I've got a REST API on the back end and I want to call it from my front end. I have a bunch of manual tools you can run to do this. You add Swashbuckle to your back end. That gives you a Swagger file. And then from that Swagger file, I can run a generator that we have in Visual Studio that will generate you the client-side code that you can call it from.
Yeah.
What if we went and stitched that back together automatically in the tooling again?
I
mean, the whole part of Visual Studio, especially in the .NET Framework 1 to 2 era, was productivity.
Yeah.
It seems like we've given you more control and more power the last couple of years.
We were still very client-server back then. You were basically wiring to the database.
Right.
But now,
in this case, we'll be wiring to a REST API and
doing it right.
So but we think we could actually go automate all those steps. And once again, you're building your Xamarin app.
Yeah.
You've got a SQL database, or you've got a Cosmos DB sitting on the back end. And we just make it very, very simple to build the APIs on top of that.
Yeah, the whammy for me is going to be authentication, authorization, encryption.
Yep.
Yeah.
As long as those three things are absolutely clear and the parameters and the ones that we are supposed to use are readily available, I love it. Like, just wire it up for me, please.
Well, and SSL is built into pretty much every Azure website and every API now.
You're going to see that's a change we're doing right now. Is we're going to make all ASP.NET Core projects SSL by default.
Great.
Even in VS, you're going to always be behind SSL. So we're trying to go say best practices. So there's a couple of best practices. SSL is one of them. A lot of folks might have heard of GDPR.
Mm-hmm.
That is the EU regulations on privacy and stuff like that. And there's rules of saying that's the thing when you see those cookie banners saying, "Hey, are you aware this site's tracking you?"
Yeah,
okay,
we use cookies. Yeah,
but it goes a lot further than that. if you actually are certified, it means your site encrypts data.
Yep.
So your user data is encrypted. It's not unencrypted.
Yeah.
You as a user can go to that site and tell it to erase your data, and it would erase your data. And so that's an area that the ASP.NET team is currently looking at building into their default templates where all the GDPR stuff is just built in.
Just do me a favor. Just make it so that my daughter can't get in the car and say, "Hey, Cortana, erase my data." And because she'd like
Who would do that?
She likes to mess with me.
Yeah, I know. She got my hands on my phone once. I had more pictures of her.
Yeah, that was a joke last time I saw you.
Yeah.
Hey Siri, erase Dad's phone.
That's right. That's true. That's true. So what's next for you?
Not traveling for a while.
You're coming to Vegas.
Idea.
I am coming to Vegas.
Yeah, Dev Intersection last week.
We have a Dev Intersections last week of October.
Yeah.
And
right around Halloween, too.
That'll be
Halloween in Vegas.
The last one for
always an adventure
for the year.
Yeah.
Will you get to Connect as well?
I am not doing Connect this year.
There you go.
So Scott Hanselman isn't here this year, and so I had to do some of his stuff this year.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And so I'm like, hey, I did your Ignite stuff.
You can do
Connect stuff. So.
That's fair. It's all right.
Scott, it's always great catching up with you. We always have stuff we learn and stuff we geek out about. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
You bet. Scott Hunter.
Guys.
We'll see you next time on .NET Rocks. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Plop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.